Back in your BuzzFeed days, you ran into Kanye and you pitched an idea to him. It was Yippee Land.
He came into the office. We tried to pitch him on our product, which was like content marketing, brand creative, and he wanted us to build him an amusement park called Easy Land.
Wait, Yippee Land? Did I get that right? Oh, it sounds amazing. I'm in. It sounds like a missed opportunity.
I'm sure he's still looking for investors. So the opportunity is probably still open.
He probably is. Of all the hits that you've had, it looks like that's an opportunity that you just clearly missed.
Missed that.
This is the Snowball Effect. You're listening to the Marketing Playbook series, presented by the Snowball Effect podcast. It's growth done right.
Hey, I'm Todd Jensen, and welcome to the Snowball Effect. And I'm really excited today. I'll be honest with you, this was a get for us to get Melissa Rosenthal here on the Snowball Effect podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Melissa. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Oh, great to have you. And Melissa is really, go follow her on LinkedIn. She's a legend on LinkedIn. She does LinkedIn right. Her stuff is amazing. But she's got an amazing background as a CMO, as a brand builder at places like ClickUp and Cheddar. But I don't want to bore you by reading a bio. Instead, let's talk to her and find out a little bit about what she's got going on. So, Melissa, let me just ask you a little bit about your journey in marketing. From what I can see, you've really had a fascinating journey working with some pretty big brands. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
I'd love to start from sort of the beginning. I think that helps if that
I
works
love
for
it.
you.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Yeah, so I think from like day one, I've always been fascinated with disruption. The idea that something we built years ago could be completely rethought and reimagined. And when I left college, the internet was completely the Wild West. There was so much discovery happening. There was so much disruption happening. And I wanted more than anything to really be a part of that. Instead of I wanted a career in advertising and media, but when I looked around, I saw these legacy companies that weren't doing anything. So I took an internship at BuzzFeed. And BuzzFeed at the time was a platform that I was an active user of. And I really, really believed in the future of digital media. I believed it had so much potential. And BuzzFeed, even in the MVP version of itself, I was using as a consumer, I was really excited about the future of what new media could look like.
So you were an early user of BuzzFeed? Like MVP version type stuff?
Yeah, the company had 5 employees while I was using it. So very, very ground floor. And yeah, I was really excited about what the future of media could look like just through the lens of what I was experiencing myself. We would be able to, as community users, write and craft our own posts and see the shareability and the spread of them and the virality compared to what they call the seeded view. And a seeded view would be the placement on the site, and the viral coefficient and the viral lift would be the lift as the effect of how viral that post went and where it would go, who would pick it up. And the technology they had built just in the way that you could actually track content and what content resonated was just the amount of insights that I was able to get from that. I was like, something here is really clicking with me. And I loved it. I was obsessed with it. I used it every day as a consumer. So what better place to try and work and to try and get an internship. I believe that legacy media was linear for so long. Get a newspaper delivered to your door. And I think a lot of their business models were not going to be able to adapt fast enough to evolve from digital and social. So I went exactly where the disruption was. And BuzzFeed, I started when there were 10 people officially. Wow. And ended up taking off. Yeah, really, really early. We were in a small office in Chinatown, New York City. I don't know if you know it. We had cockroaches in our coffee. It's really, really ground floor startup, but it was a wonderful environment, especially for a first job. And BuzzFeed ended up taking off, and it was obviously not that easy. It was after a lot of hard work and experimentation, but the company grew very quickly. And for a first job, experiencing that type of hyper growth, hyper scale, building valuation, it was really just, I was forced into this really, really exciting world and journey. And I realized very early on that I wanted to be on the marketing and advertising side. And I was able to really immerse myself there in building that side of the business. As a 20-year-old, I was given responsibilities that would have taken me years in a traditional company, but I wanted to always move fast in my career. I've always been very career driven. So this was really perfect for me. So I grew BuzzFeed. My team was about 130 people by the time I left, and in so many different countries. We had a team in Japan, a team in Brazil, a team in Mexico. So to build a global creative team of 130 people was really just something that I could only have dreamed about for my first role. And the company, by the time I left after 6 years, was, I believe it was 1,500 people and about a valuation of $1 billion.
Even just if I can insert here, because I just find this really
Yeah.
fascinating, Melissa. Like
Yeah.
from the outside looking in, BuzzFeed to me, I mean, you correct me if this isn't what you saw at the ground floor there, but from the outside looking in, it felt like BuzzFeed was really the leader in systematizing viral content. Is that
Yeah.
overstated? I mean, that's just my perception.
No, I mean, that's completely accurate. We became a household name because we understood the formulaic way of creating viral content. And that was done over creating hundreds of thousands of formats and blueprints and trial and error and the amount of testing that goes on behind the scenes. You see it become a household name. And I'm actually going to write a LinkedIn post on this, but you see something become a household name and you're like, wow, that happened quickly. This thing is everywhere. And the reality of it is just relentless testing and optimization and A/B testing and building tech that supports that to get the data and insights you need to be able to create the content that actually does go viral, tracking that content, then doubling down, creating new formats, moving really fast. It was a machine, but it was really exciting time to be there.
That's incredible. What a golden opportunity. So you go from BuzzFeed, walk us through kind of the next chapter. Where'd you go from there?
Yes, BuzzFeed had grown beyond my wildest imagination. It was a dream for me. And I'm a person that need constant kind of reinvention of myself. And there was, after that amount of time at that company, there were some cracks in the facade of what could potentially happen to media. And it was both exciting and it was both very scary. And one of the things that happened at BuzzFeed was that we had really good relationships with all of the platforms. We were effectively the train that ran on their tracks. And having those relationships, our CEO would meet with Zuck every month and give us the insights on what Facebook was working on. And you feel like that you have this really symbiotic relationship where you kind of need each other. And the cracks started to show where that wasn't necessarily the case, and they weren't going to really prioritize our type of content as much. And what does that mean when you are reliant on other platforms as the rails? Is it's a little bit scary. Now, what happened at the end of my tenure there was we had this video that went viral on Facebook, and it was when Facebook just came out with Facebook Live, and we did something that had been done, I don't know, 100,000 times on YouTube. We basically put rubber bands around a watermelon until it exploded. And it was about an hour and a half stream. And I think we had 60 million people concurrent watching this watermelon explode. And I mean, can that be replicated? Who knows? But CNN was like, is this the future of live media? Is this the future of live TV? People watching these things happen in real time? And the answer was probably yes and no. But what it did was it sort of triggered this thing in my mind where it was like, oh, this is really interesting. There's something there. And at the same time, John, who I had mentioned, he had left the company and he had gone to another company. And when I was thinking about leaving BuzzFeed, we met up at a restaurant in the city, and he said, I have an idea for taking this bet on what I think the future of live cable news will be and live news. And the bet is that consumers will cut the cord with cable because it's too expensive. You have no control. You don't watch 90% of the channels that you have. And that there will be a rise in the number of OTT and streaming providers. And those streaming providers will be on demand like Netflix. And then there will be other streaming providers that will do live news. And those will be the types of bundles that you'll be able to pick from rather than just having this cable bundle. So cable will be dead, and then you'll have over the top. And if this hypothesis proves correct, there's going to be a race to secure as much millennial and Gen Z focused content, live content as possible, live and on demand content.
Wait, this is fascinating, Melissa. Wait, are you Nostradamus here? Because what year was this that you were laying this out?
This was 2000, end of 2018, beginning of 2019. So
Because
every streaming provider
that's kind
outside
of our
of
reality
that
now,
didn't
right?
exist. It's our reality, and none of it existed. No one was really betting on cord cutting. It was like it's he said that to me, I was like, that makes complete sense. Like that's a bet I want to take. But at that point in time, it was a very contrarian view because no one was betting on it. It was like, no one thought that the traditional bundle would ever be able to be broken apart. And a necessity for that to happen is that all these other new streaming content providers would need to pop up, and that there would be a race to get this type of content. And this type of content isn't easy. It's not short form video. It's not stitching videos together. It's not Instagram. So what is it? It's net new content. And it's either very expensive on demand Netflix, HBO Max style content, which you need huge amounts of funding for, or it's live. So let's play in the live bucket. And that was our bet.
So many questions here. One, and it'll kind of lead into my other question, is about virality. All right. From the outside looking in, virality feels accidental. It feels, oh, I sneeze into a rag and something catches. But this sounds like at BuzzFeed, you're creating formulas and you're testing what's viral, what's not. I remember that watermelon video. Now, it was either that video or it was someone else's knockoff copycat version of that. But the anticipation of watching that watermelon, and the one I watched, it was 60 frames per second, slow-mo, it was either super slow-mo, and just watching that thing just slowly just contract and then finally blow up in epic fashion. It was the ultimate payoff. So how much of that watermelon thing is just, hey, we're throwing everything on a wall and seeing what sticks, versus, no, let's combine a couple things here with the anticipation and the payoff and all this that is going to make this conducive to virality? So that's the first question, is what's some of that viral formula that you were able, that you could distill for us?
Yeah, I mean, for that specifically, it was, hey, we're noticing this shift in the prioritization of different types of content. Facebook is prioritizing different formats and different products that they're rolling out. How do we take our approach to what we know works with virality and then approach that with their whatever product they want to highlight, right? So with Facebook, it was all of that. It was the anticipation. It was you're going to tell someone else to watch this. You're going to all want to watch it together. You can feel united, like going through this thing. And a lot of that also had to do with, I don't know if you heard about this one, which is also, this is amazing because at this point in time, there was one single ecosystem in which virality existed. And I was actually just talking about this with someone else the other day, but virality now is distributed through so many different ecosystems that something can go viral and have 50 million views and we don't know about it because it's viral in its own little world. Right. And I think that didn't exist at that time. There was it was still linear virality, which doesn't exist anymore. So it's like taking advantage of that. But it was very similar to the way that we thought about the dress. It was like everyone had to be in on this conversation. It was water cooler. If you didn't know about it or hear about it, you weren't in the know. And the same thing that we felt with the way that we were going to, publish the watermelon video live and see what happened. We had the entire office circled around it. You were watching our office watch them put this rubber band on the watermelon for an hour and a half, waiting for it to explode. So it's just this moment in time that I think was fleeting because I don't really think we have those anymore. And I think it was just something that almost was a little bit nostalgic. It was like watching a rocket take off or NASA, right?
It absolutely was a gather around my desk at work and watch this thing, this ephemeral thing that happens once. And it's almost an experience that creates this. I love everything about that.
Yeah, that was sort of like the aha moment to me where I was like, oh, this is interesting. The pivot to live video, the pivot from Facebook, the decline in some of the traffic we were seeing from the traditional content that we were publishing across those platforms, and what that meant. And that was sort of when I was like, maybe there's some what's next. I was sort of thinking what's next. And then the conversation with John about the contrarian view with post cable and OTT becoming the leading way people would watch on demand and live content outside of the cable bundle was kind of perfect timing. I was like, this is the window. When you have a window, take it.
And that leads to my next question. So kind of like this, okay, what are some of the common denominators about a viral video? I mean, just last night I was talking to my son and his girlfriend, and she was talking to me about, you talk about these, what did you call this? Like a micro viral, or within a silo, within this alternate universe, there's this viral thing going on. And she talks to me about these videos that she's watching that blew my mind. It was basically, I think you'll love this, Melissa. It was like we see, she was talking about girls putting makeup on, but while they're telling true crime stories. And so I was like, oh, what the perfect combination. I'm learning great techniques while I'm hearing these amazing true crime stories. I was like, dude, this is like the perfect
I love
collection
that.
of
Yeah.
things.
That's yeah, like like I'm not like a makeup tutorial person,
Right,
but
right.
like that the true crime really hits me. I love true crime.
I'm the
But like
same.
the fact that that is it's just that's perfect. That's exactly like what the internet now has done, right?
Right.
It's taken these different formulas of things that now exist in their own worlds for a subgenre of someone that wants true crime and makeup tutorials. That's where we are, but we weren't there, which is really interesting. I love to see how it's evolving to me.
We were Annie and I, my wife and I, were joking afterwards about, because she loves true crime. I mean, she's just but she also loves those. Oh, what's the acronym? ASMR videos. The
Yeah,
sound
yeah,
that's soothing, and I was like, oh, we could combine
yeah.
those two, and I could just
True crime and ASMR.
yeah, I could chew gum really close to a microphone while you tell true crime stories.
I mean, there's
There
something
we go.
there.
There we go. You can take that, Melissa, that idea if you want. But honestly, my question is, okay, you're a risk taker. You've got these contrarian views. I mean, you're really early making some big bets, Melissa, on your career. And I mean, you're going against the grain on you. I mean, there's some foundational media consumption habits that we have, and you're betting against that. So,
Yes.
how does somebody balance that risk versus the opportunity? Do you have any
Yeah.
way of
So
approaching that so we don't sink our career because we're going to bet on the next ASMR true crime thing versus detecting opportunity and jumping on it?
the de-risking of this was that we knew that Netflix was already available, Hulu was already available, streaming was starting to jump off. So the contrarian view was that this would happen very rapidly, and it needed to happen rapidly for this to work for us. And the second piece was that we would be able to build a live news network that would appeal to these new age streaming services. So there were a few things that kind of de-risked it. We knew that we could do tech millennial news really well, really cheap, for a fraction of the cost of what legacy companies needed to charge to do it, because it's just like they were bloated and inefficient. So there were some mechanics of the business that like made a lot of sense that de-risked. It wasn't an idea that existed pre-Netflix, pre-Hulu, and people had already started, when we looked at the data, to drop cable. It just hadn't happened at the rapid pace that we thought it would, and that we thought it would happen over the next 3 years. What we decided to do is build the first post-cable network, focusing on tech and on finance and on business news for millennials. And we were often called the CNBC for millennials. And the bet paid off. We would track this data very, very closely, and consumers started cutting the cord faster than we ever thought possible. So the bet was that, and it did happen. And at the same time, the second piece of that bet, which is all the new OTT services would pop up, and a lot of them would be focused on live news, and they would look to focus on millennial focused content. And we scaled faster than we thought we would. We went from an hour a day of live to 24 hours a day of live to be able to get onto these streaming services like YouTube TV. That was what they required. And it's not easy to go from an hour a day to 24 hours a day of live content. We had 2 studios, we had anchors, we had guests. I mean, the mechanics of building that business, like in 3 years, that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. But it worked. It worked through a ton of hard work and grit. We were able to grow the business to the point where we were on every single OTT provider. We had done 50 million in revenue in 3 years. And it was beyond, again, my wildest dreams of like how well we could fit into the window of all these things that sort of happened at the same time.
That's incredible. If you were to make kind of a pie chart of how much of what you were doing during that, you all knew what you were doing versus how much you were making up on the fly, you're assembling the plane mid-flight, what would that pie chart look like?
I mean, the blueprint was tech, finance, news for millennials, right? Like we had that. We knew we wanted the company to be bold and bright and vibrant, and the brand to scream like weird and what is this? Because we knew that would gain attention. Everything else that was out there, all the legacy, CNBC, Fox Business, MSNBC, very stiff and masculine in the way that they presented themselves through brand. So our brand was going to be vibrant, and a block of cheese was going to be our logo, and we were going to be that challenger company. But outside of the way that we positioned ourselves in market and what we knew we were going to cover, I mean, oh my God, it was like, even to get a guest, to get your first guest, to get good guests, to get better guests, like it is such a rigorous process to get your first advertisers, to get your first dollars, to build programming for them, to get that programming into it is, I can't even describe to you like what that was like. It was pretty unbelievable to be able to do that.
That's incredible. So those are some of your cool experiences at Cheddar. Then where'd you
Yep.
go?
Yeah, so we sold Cheddar to a cable company, to the fourth largest cable company in the US. Ironically, right? They wanted a post-cable network.
That's right.
Cable needed post-cable.
Yeah,
So we sold
all these cool forward-thinking approaches, right?
Exactly. So they purchased us, and I knew that my future was not in a 15,000 person cable company, given that I had been betting against that. I left and I took a little bit of time, and I was like, I really want to go into tech. I want to be on the brand side of tech. I wanted to be building again, and tech had always been enticing to me. I really wanted to have a great product that wasn't content for the first time, where content could be the means to support and drive demand, and you could do a lot of creative things, but you weren't selling content. And I wanted to be building again. I wanted to be an early stage company with great product market fit that I believed had really huge potential. But I was looking at a couple of early stage Series A companies, and ClickUp was one of them. And it just aligned the ethos of the company, the addressable market, their product market fit to date, the bootstrapping, who Zeb was, our CEO, and the way how vibrant he was. It all was just like the perfect fit for me. So I moved from New York to San Diego to take a role as ClickUp's first chief creative officer.
So what's that transition like? You're across the country.
Yeah.
You're going from content to kind of SaaS type marketing. What a transition. Walk me through a little bit of what that must have been like.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the conversations leading up to me joining had been around the brand that I wanted ClickUp to become. I had done a lot of research on it. I had done a lot of research on Zeb, and he embodied as a leader the brand that I would have wanted to build. So it was like that really drew me to it. And I'd always been on the brand and content side, and I knew that if I could build a bright and vibrant, similar to BuzzFeed and Cheddar, and funny and contrarian brand to everything else in B2B SaaS, that potentially we would have the same outcome as media companies. Because why can't we be for project management software? We don't need to take ourselves too seriously. We want to solve problems for our customers, and a great problem we solve, I believe. And there was no reason that we couldn't build that type of brand for project management, work management software. So that was the thought process. It was like, I think the grass is really green to create this vibrant, humorous, standout, bold, funny, risk-taking brand that is just a little polarizing, but at the end of the day becomes a legacy brand and a legacy company. And that was the vision.
It's a real compliment to you that they would trust you. They would hand over their brand to you. That it sounds like you kind of created the vision for not just the marketing strategy, but the brand itself. How do you align that, Melissa, with the actual business goals of an org like ClickUp?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. There's the traditional go-to-market strategy that you need to, which is everything as it pertains to understanding your CAC payback and your marketing channels and where you sit now and where you want to be. But there's also this opportunity, especially I chose to go to ClickUp because the addressable market is everyone. It's every business owner. It's every company size. We are trying to reach everyone. So it's much closer to consumer than it is if we're like a cybersecurity company where we are super hyper niche. So the marketing strategy, especially at that time, more so mirrored consumer than it did that. We were able to try new channels like OTT and advertise on podcasts and roll out a huge billboard strategy and really create amazing tube creative that we were spending a lot of money against. So a lot of the channels that we would have gone to as a consumer brand, we were able to as a B2B company, and also running webinars and doing email lifecycle marketing and all the things you do as a B2B company. But we were able to expand past that because the goal was to IPO. It wasn't to sell the company. Zeb wanted the company to be a $50 billion company and I believe the industry would allow that. We were up against Atlassian and Monday, and if we didn't do and punch up in a big way, we weren't going to be able to get there. So a lot of the ultimate business goals sort of aligned to being able to build a really bold and a really strong legacy brand. So I think starting there and then basically bundling all of the marketing activities and go-to-market functions within that just ethos of how we think about ourselves was what we allowed us to do that. And obviously through relentless optimization and testing and experimentation on the testing side, it's everything. And also a very strong SEO long tail strategy that was built from day one and all the things you do, but then all the things that no other B2B company was actually doing.
Tell me a little bit about the early days there when you're trying to get a SaaS company like that. I mean, you're going against heavy hitters. You mentioned there a couple times your customers. Like in those early days, how did you win over some of those first customers? And then what can people do as they're learning to grow to take some of those early customers and really turn them into advocates for their brand?
Yeah.
Could you walk us through a little bit of that?
Yeah, also part of the reason I joined, I did not contribute to getting the first customers. Like they had customers before I joined. And the company had, I think, bootstrapped to, was it 8 to 10 million in revenue before I got in there? So the company was doing pretty well. And
Right.
the fact that they had,
They had to
it was
afford
pretty
you. I
incredible.
mean, they had to be able to afford you.
And afford what I wanted to
Yeah,
do with the
exactly. Your
company and
vision.
be
I can't
right.
imagine that was an inexpensive
I
vision
was,
to execute.
yeah, exactly. So they had done a lot. And what they really did was they listened to their customers. And Zeb was so he loved the Zappos playbook and was so customer centric that the tonality and the response rate and how quickly we responded to them and where we were and how visible we were across social and every touch point, and which I also believe is obviously ladders back to what brand is. It's how you experience brand across every single thing, including customer service, including the product itself. What does that feel like holistically? And that had to be exceptional. Winning those customers over and having them talk about not only how great the product is, but how great the experience is holistically to other people. Like that's how once you activate, you get the K factor, right? How are you going to get people to talk about and become champions and advocates for your brand and for your product? Now, of course, there are programs to be able to do that. There's Influitive, there's things you can do, but that's later, right? To get that virality to start, you have to just build a very, very customer centric playbook, which is really best in class customer service, best in class experience, listening to what their frustrations are, creating a canny board if there are bugs. It's really this like full life cycle of understanding from point of activation to renewals to churn, what is happening. And that's just, it's understanding that and being able to course correct it every step of the way.
There's something that you said there about listening to your customers, building world-class customer success, customer support teams. I just read somewhere in the last couple of months, and I can't remember who said it, so I'll claim this quote. But basically, your brand isn't what you say it is; it's what your customers say about you. That's really
Absolutely
your brand. And so really just listening to them, especially early on, and understanding their pain points, and I think is just so critical in building that brand. You said something on LinkedIn recently that I really liked, Melissa, and I'll give you credit for this one, but it was growth isn't clean. What do you mean by that?
Things don't work, right? There's a lot of failure. Things break, things don't work, things slow down, things stop working, new channels come up. It is the dirtiest. I think I said this too, you are looking for crumbs everywhere. But it's your ability to look at these crumbs, see if they taste good. And if they taste good, is there more crumbs, right? And it's to follow these crumbs until there are either no crumbs left or you find an entire pie. And I think that's sort of the way that we think about it. It's like experiment fast and quick, learn quickly, and kill things quickly. And I think that's all what growth is about. It's just moving and agility and grit and being able to really like just have ruthless prioritization on that kind of relentless stream of experimentation. And that's experimentation across everything, across A/B testing, across copy testing, across activation, across everything that you're doing. It's a messy process. You can have a playbook that looks great, but also it's not applied business to business. It's not even SaaS company to SaaS company. Certain things will work at different companies that won't work at others. And I think it's understanding that you can have a framework for a playbook, but it's not going to be copy paste.
What was the phrase you said? Ruthless prioritization? That
Yeah, ruthless prioritization. But it's ruthless. This is not to contradict myself, but it's ruthless prioritization married to ruthless experimentation and trying every single thing that you can. And my favorite thing like that Zeb would do is he would always say, let's try it and ship it. And it was quick. He wouldn't pontificate on like for days on whether it was like something we should do. Let's try it. And I love that because that's exactly the attitude that you have to win. If you're not constantly trying new things and seeing how they perform, how are you gonna outpace your competitors? I think it's those two things married.
in order to do that successfully, Melissa, it feels, I mean, you mentioned the word grit. It just feels like you would need so much grit. You'd need calluses to just protect you from the inevitable repeated failures in order to be able to be experimenting and trying things like this. How do people, especially marketers, where sometimes we create something and we put it out in the wild and we just want people to like it, but then when something like that gets cut off at the knees, that can be a little brutal. How does somebody build those calluses, build that grit?
Yeah, I mean, first, like, you just have to understand that every 1 out of 5 experiments, if one wins, like, you're seeing success. Like, that's how much you have to test, and that's how much you will fail. So I think that's just to level set that, like, you're going to fail a lot to write a few hits. And I think the second part of that is just celebrating some of those small wins. Some of them can seem so small at first, but if you rally the team behind, we're headed in the right direction. Like these are some things that we're seeing, run them through the data, how it's working, what the feedback is, taking the hard data and the things that you actually need to look at, the metrics that are tracking to your business, but then also the anecdotal information that you're seeing on Twitter, through media listening, that's actually tracking back. You can create a narrative that formulates like whether something is really working and whether it has legs to continue. And I think it's building up the cases, obviously, to present to leadership to be able to continue some of these things. But it's also these small things. It's celebrating them along the way. It keeps you going because you're going to fail a lot, but the small wins and then the bigger wins and then the enormous wins just feel so much better when you've celebrated a little bit because it's helped you keep going. Because sometimes absolutely brutal. I will not sugarcoat it. It's brutal.
It makes me think of kind of the current job market right now. I mean, I talk to a lot of marketers and there's fear right now. You've got the
Yeah.
tsunami of AI coming and headlines that are saying it's going to take your job and all these types of things. What recommendation would you give right now for marketers that are looking for the next thing or are looking for a thing right now?
I mean, I would say finding a company that you are deeply passionate about what they're doing, obviously, is pretty important because you have to eat, sleep, breathe it to make it work like you just do, no matter what level you're at, especially at a startup. I think it's just number one. Number two is finding a role and a company that is going to, especially if you're ambitious, give you the opportunity to really step up and try a lot of these things and have a boss that's supportive of them, or if not, gives you feedback on why. But the goal, if you're is to get your foot in the door and learn and fail as fast as you possibly can and have a boss that understands there's going to be failures, but at the same time, through those failures, you will see wins. So it's kind of finding that perfect spot where you're going to be able to get the opportunity to be able to do that and learn more faster than other people that are stuck in a role because they're content doing one thing. And I think that's my advice for very ambitious people that want to get their foot in the door with a company. Also, and obviously the company matters. I really believe that we are in a stage where, yes, AI is a big, big topic, of course, but when you think about the future of AI, think about the future of what bundling AI looks like. There's a lot of standalone, siloed AI products that are not going to exist because AI is just going to become a layer within a lot of the products that we already know. New products will be created, but it won't just be value extraction, it should be value creation. So I think it's like thinking about AI in a strategic way if you're thinking about going into that. But I also think about any company, any industry now, it's not what it was. You can't just creating a SaaS company that is going to stand alone and exist within an ecosystem where budgets are tighter
Mm-hmm.
and it can be bundled within another company. That's the problem. So I always I give advice to people sometimes, and I'm like, what do you think this company like could be built tomorrow by this other company? Because that's what could happen. Can it like how will AI impact that company specifically? So it's a good thing to look at when you're thinking about like where you want to land. But I deeply believe in AI becoming embedded. I believe in that in the extraction. ClickUp embedded AI in a brilliant way into the product. It's such a natural fit. It alleviates a lot of the things that you're already doing, the busy work to actually get work done, which I love. I think that there's going to be a lot of net new value creation using AI and not just extraction. And I'm really excited about that.
I'm the same. I'm actually really excited to kind of ride the wave and see where it takes us. I think the opportunities there are going to be pretty incredible. But I really like what you said about not just kind of looking at the company itself and making sure this is something you can really get behind, that you're going to love the process of building their brand and their marketing strategy. But then you said something I thought that was intriguing about a boss or the people that are going to be giving you the resources that they have the kind of disposition that they're ready to try new things. If somebody, let's say in an interview or in those conversations with the person they'll be reporting to or the person that's going to be controlling some of their resources, any red flags that you can look for, like how much of a support are they going to be to this aggressive, maybe slightly contrarian or at least experimental approach that's going to be required to find the hits? What are some red flags you could identify?
I think it's how does the leader or the person that will be making the ultimate calls view marketing? Where are the marketing investments right now? Where are you looking for? What are you looking at towards the future? What are some channels and opportunities you're excited about? What's working? What's not working? And what is the investment into marketing in the future? Are you hiring one hire to like offload some work, or are you hiring to actually take this to the next level and to expand on things that are working and net new channels? And what does that vision actually look like? So I think that's very important. If they give you wishy-washy answers, it makes you question, did they even know the vision? I think you want to work for a company where no matter who you're interviewing for, they are so clear headed at where the company's headed, where their division is headed, where their resources are, what they're focused on. And if they can give you clear cut answers on that, I think it's important to be able to have that.
Personal lessons that you would give to marketers that you've learned through hard knocks or through trial and error? What's some personal advice that you would give to marketers out there?
That is really tough. It's a lot. I mean, I would say again, like the 1 in 5 experiment, 1 in 5 work, like you're doing something. I think you should be running 20 plus experiments a week across channels, across activation, across retention, across net new acquisition. And you need to be doing that at scale. At the same time, you need to be constantly trying new channels. You need to be figuring out what the next thing is because you're going to see diminishing returns on everything. And then the third is really think about what the future of organic growth looks like for the company, for the product, because that's going to outlive paid, right? So where are you with your organic strategy? What does that look like? I mean, of course, like you're going to have a paid strategy, but CAC is really hard to scale and it's expensive. And you want to be able to have something that offsets that, hopefully by 50% or more. So what does that strategy look like? And I think if you have a very strong organic strategy paired with a paid that can scale up and down levers based on where you are in market, where the market is, what funds are available, where we are in our cycle of efficiency versus spending, I think that's really important. So having an organic strategy, experimenting just a ton, cutting channels when they don't work, and moving really fast is important.
I love it. I hear rumor that you've been traveling the world. You've got some things in the works. Do you want to give us a little tease about some of the projects you're working on?
Yeah, after an amazing run at some pretty incredible unicorn companies, I am going out on my own with a co-founder, and we have built a really amazing product in content tech that I think will do a lot of the things I've needed throughout my career. And it's focused on net new value creation rather than extraction. And it's focused on what I believe the future of content tech, content marketing, all mixed with AI looks like. So I'm really excited to bring it to market. I get rallied up every day, and I feel like I am uniquely kind of poised to solve this through my career in media and my career in SaaS, and sort of banging my head against the wall with some of these challenges. So I think when you have that, you can get really excited about something. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. We're in stealth right now, but we'll be rolling out in the next month or so.
Oh, so this is rolling out here soon. So we won't have to wait long before some of this is unveiled.
It's a mix of everything I'm seeing in the SaaS space and what is needed to reach the right ICPs, the mix of what companies need to push their content forward, AI, and then also what's happening in the media space. So it's the meeting of all of those different things in one product.
I love it. If people want to get a hold of you, they want to pick your brain or just kind of follow some of these cool things that you've got coming up, what's the best way for them to do that?
LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn a lot, as you kind of referenced. I love LinkedIn. I love connecting with people. Some of the best connections and networking I've ever done is on LinkedIn. So find me there, and I do write back very quickly, as I referenced as Mark Cuban inspired me to do. I write back very fast.
I saw that post about Mark Cuban there, but I saw another one recently. So everybody go to Melissa's LinkedIn and check out her little comment. Wait, walk me through this. Back in your BuzzFeed days, you ran into Kanye and you pitched an idea to him. It was Yippee Land,
He
Yeezy
came into the
Land.
office. We tried to pitch him on our product, which is like content marketing, brand creative, and he wanted us to build him an amusement park called Easy Land.
Wait,
We didn't build
Yeezy
the amusement
Land?
park.
Did I
Yeah.
get that right? Oh, it sounds amazing. I'm in. It sounds like a missed opportunity.
I'm sure he's still looking for investors. So
He
the
probably
opportunity is probably
is.
still open.
He probably is. Of all the hits that you've had, it looks like that's an opportunity that you just clearly missed. So,
Missed that.
hey, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time and
Yeah.
just distilling some real life examples and some real life principles that we can learn from to help grow.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. This was fun.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining the Snowball Effect podcast. This is our marketing playbook series, and we'll see you next time.